Justice Center serves a wide range of clients, from folks who've committed what we call low-level crimes. So those folks come through our either directly from the court in what's called direct court referral, or through the probation and parole department through the low-risk unit. Those clients primarily go through the reparative boards. And so as part of the reparative process, they're asked to talk about their crime, what happened, what were they thinking at the time, who was affected by what they did, how were those people were affected, and what can they do to repair the harm. The people who come through our reparative boards are also asked to look at what are they doing in their lives so that something like this doesn't happen again.
RIP boards are a great way for community members to meet with people who have negatively affected the community by committing a crime, and just to have a conversation about what was going on, what were you thinking at the time, and what happened, and who was affected, and how, and what can be done to repair the harm. So it's really creating that conversation and asking the offender to do some items in a written contract over the course of 90 days, at the end of which the rep board can say, we feel like you've completed this contract. We feel like you've really taken this seriously. You've thought about what happened and how to avoid it happening in the future.
I think for the rep boards, even that the rep boards don't necessarily take on cases that are around issues of domestic and sexual violence because of the very nature of those crimes. However, I think that we can bring somewhat of a victim perspective to the table as a way for rep boards, the people on the rep boards, to understand some of the dynamics that go on for victims. And in such cases that there may be victims that are actually coming before the rep board and for crimes that maybe their victimization has had some impact in their lives. So I think we're there to educate and to kind of be a consultant on those types of issues with the rep boards.
Reparative boards are led by community volunteers. So there are, on average, 4 volunteers on each board. And each month they meet with a group of clients, and the board goes through a restorative process with the clients. Again, they ask those key restorative questions. What happened? Who was affected by what happened? How were they affected? What do they need for the harm to be put right? And whose responsibility is it to do this? And then they also ask the offender to take a look at what are some things that they can do in their own lives to put themselves in a better place so that this doesn't happen again. So the board members, the volunteers, lead this process. And towards the end of the meeting, they'll develop a contract, a restorative contract. And in the contract, there will be a set of activities that the offender agrees to fulfill within the next 3 months. The goal is to identify who's been harmed and to come up with meaningful activities to repair that harm. And so each board is different, and each contract is different. But the goal is that the offender, over the course of the next 3 months, after they meet with the board, will do all those activities and bring proof of that back to the board for a second meeting. At which point they talk about what they've done. The board will ask them questions and get a sense of how the process was for them. And then if they've completed everything, they're done with the reparative aspect of their sentence.
So if they made the contract, they're accepted and they don't fulfill the contract, unfortunately we have to bring them back in front of the judge and kind of say to the judge, okay, here's what happened. You know, they made this contract, they didn't fulfill it for whatever reason. And sort of the outcomes can vary. We could say, you know what, because they didn't fulfill the contract, let's have them do community service or work crew. It would have to be really bad before they would do the jail piece. We try to go through progressive steps.
And the Community Justice Center exists primarily on the backs of volunteers. There's a very small, dedicated, incredibly enthusiastic staff that work here, but without the volunteers, the Community Justice Center would not have been able to grow in the way it has.
Right now I'm in the middle of doing a newsletter, a CJC newsletter, all about volunteers and the importance of volunteers. And quite literally, we would not function as a justice center without them. Our reparative boards couldn't run, our COSAs, Circles of Support and Accountability, couldn't run, we couldn't do what we do. It has to be a community endeavor. It's the Community Justice Center. I know that's the most obvious soundbite, but it's really true. And because it's not a top-down kind of endeavor, it's bottom-up, it's grassroots, it's ideally training the members of the community to really be able to resolve these issues themselves. And they are the lifeblood of what we do. I think it is sometimes one of those things where you have to make a leap of faith. I think someone who's watching this video might think to themselves, oh, there might be a kernel here, something I can do, something I'd be interested in. And I think just taking that leap of faith and walking through the door or picking up the phone and calling and seeing where your place might be is a great idea, and we'd love to hear from people.